I'm teacher Susan. Today we're looking at comparatives and superlatives. We're looking at comparing things, saying how some things are very similar and some things are very different. Okay, we also look at some parts of another video that I made, a listening video called Climbing Mount Annupuri. Take a look at today's video and then go back and have a look at this whole video about climbing Mount Annupuri again as well, and that will give you an idea of how these sentences we look at today are used in a longer listening activity. We can use adjectives and adverbs to describe things. What are adjectives? Let's take a look at some examples. This is a snowy mountain. That is a big car. What a beautiful girl. All right, and how about some adverbs? She is a fast walker. I can see very far. That truck is very slow. We can also use adjectives and adverbs to compare things. These things might be very similar or very different. Okay, so let's take a look at an example. Look at this photograph. There are 3 people in the picture. Peter, Sally, and David. To use comparatives, here are some examples. David is taller than Peter. Sally is taller than David. To show something that's very similar, we can say David is slightly taller than Peter. Or to say that something is very different, we can say Sally is much taller than Peter. To use superlatives, Peter is the shortest. Sally is the tallest. Okay, how do we make comparatives and superlatives? What are the rules about making these words? Let's take a look. For 1-syllable words, we add ER and EST. For example, tall, taller, tallest. Short, shorter, shortest. So we add the ER and the EST onto the end of the original word. For most 2-syllable words, we add more and most. For example, different, more different, the most different. Different is a 2-syllable word. But just be careful with this. Some common 2-syllable words you can either add ER or EST, or you can add more or most. So both ways are possible. All 3-syllable words, we add more and most. For example, beautiful, more beautiful, the most beautiful. Beautiful is a 3-syllable word, so that's why we're adding more and most. Okay, now, if the last letter of the word is E, then we're just going to add an R or an ST. For example, if the word is large, the last letter is E, so we say larger and the largest. We don't need to add an extra E. Where the last 2 letters of the word are a vowel and a consonant, then we double the last consonant. For example, big, we have B, consonant, vowel, and consonant, B-I-G. Bigger, so we make 2 G's, and the biggest, B-I-G-G-E-S-T. Where the last letter is Y, we change the Y to I and add ER or EST. For example, pretty, prettier, prettiest. Now, just be careful because some very common words are irregular, such as good, bad, worse, or far, further, furthest. Basic comparative and superlative sentences are quite easy to make when you know the rules. Even if you do make a few mistakes, the meaning is still clear. So it's still good to try to make the sentences even if you're not sure exactly about, is that est or more? The most? Okay, so try, and with practice you will begin to remember all of these rules. Let's take a look at some examples from Climbing Niseko Annupuri video. I'm faster than you. Julia's only 7 and she was fine. She was probably better than me. I guess the hardest part is not really climbing the mountain. It's going back down again. Okay. We can also make some more complex sentences, some more difficult sentences with comparatives as well. Sometimes we want to show that two things are increasing at the same time or at the same speed, or becoming less, decreasing at the same speed. Let's take a look at an example. As you get higher and higher, you can see further and further across the mountain ranges. Okay, so here you climb higher and you see further. Climb higher, see further. Climb higher, see further. Okay, it's happening together at the same time. Another example. As you study harder and harder, you can speak English better and better. Okay, so study harder and at the same time, English better. Study harder, English better. Okay, at the same speed. Right, we can also use comparatives to describe a change on a journey or over time. Let's take a look at an example. As we got closer to the top of the mountain, it got quite cool. As you get closer to the top, it does get quite exciting. Okay, so closer to the top, exciting. Closer to the top and more exciting. These things are related to each other. Another common structure is using comparatives to show that things must happen together. Both actions need to happen. They depend on each other. Okay, so for this example we use the plus the comparative and then the plus the comparative. An example, the harder we study English, the easier it becomes. So study harder and at the same time English is easier. But they both have to happen. They both happen together. They depend on each other. We can also use this with more, less, or fewer. We use less with uncountable nouns and fewer with countable nouns. For example, less snow and fewer people. Okay, let's take a look at an example. The higher we got, the more snow there was on the ground. So in this case, higher, more snow. More snow, higher. More snow, higher. More snow. Okay, so at the very top, there's lots of snow, and here, less snow. We could also say the lower we got, the less snow there was on the ground. In this case, lower equals less snow. All right, now another more complex way of using comparatives is with conditional sentences. Conditionals are a little bit tricky. There are lots of conditionals. Let's take a look at some examples. Okay, using with conditionals, the zero conditional. These we use for facts. For example, when it snows, it gets colder. Then, for first conditionals, these we use for possible situations in the future. For example, if I stay outside too long, I'll get colder. Or for second conditionals, these describe an unreal or imaginary situation. If I lived in Australia, I'd be warmer than I am now. Or for third conditionals, these are an imaginary result from an unreal past situation. So, for example, it would have been warmer if we had stayed in Australia. We can also use it with might or may, plus have, plus been, plus the comparative. For example, it might have been faster to walk the other way. Unfortunately, we didn't walk that way and it was quite slow, and we're thinking about how a different way of doing something might have been better. So a better alternative. Okay, so let's take a look at an example from the video. We were only wearing sneakers, but possibly at the top it might have been better to have some proper boots. All right, as you can see, we use comparatives and superlatives a lot in everyday speech. In simple sentences, we use them to show how similar or how different things are. There are many different grammar structures that you can use with comparatives and superlatives, so I hope you've enjoyed learning a few of these different ways with me today. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you take a look at Climbing Mount Niseko Annupuri, my other video, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for studying English with me. Bye!
スーザンと一緒に Let's Study English! Yay!